Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Now today a brand new trailer reveal dropped for Mega Zeraora with some additional details coming out from leakers around the Mega Dimension DLC as well. So we're going to try and unpack this and take a look at everything to do with the new Mega Zeraora reveal, and also we're going to try and figure out whether this DLC is good value. Is it worth the money, and how might it compare to other Pokemon DLCs? Leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you enjoy, and let's dive in. Alright, so let's first and foremost just let this trailer play, particularly because it's a very short one anyway, so it won't take up too much time. Some might say it was a little bit of an underwhelming reveal today, particularly with how it was kind of something that a lot of people already knew thanks to the leaks and stuff like that. Here we have a bunch of poison Pokemon, and I don't know if there's any relevance to the fact they're poison Pokemon. Groups of poison Pokemon taking on the trainer in the Mega Dimension, and apparently at this stage the trainer has Zeraora. We don't know how, we don't know why, we don't know where Zeraora came from, but this trainer, Paxton, has Zeraora and Mega Evolves it, and then we see the reveal of the design. We see that standard kind of like glow that you see in ZA when the Mega Evolved Pokemon have that kind of, you know, waves of energy going across their model, their character model. And then he does this attack that takes out like multiple Pokemon, strong Pokemon as well. You know, they're not particularly easy Pokemon to take down, quite defensive Pokemon. So Zeraora is going to hit really, really hard in its Mega form. It does this like ground smash electric attack. You see that right there? Looks like it's some sort of like discharge combined with Plasma Fists. Maybe it's a new move, I don't know. And then that's it really. That's kind of all there is to it. There's some kind of slides about the Mega Stone rewards and the Diancie mission and stuff like that. And that was all we got today. So that was sort of underwhelming. So let's take a look at Mega Zeraora's description on the Pokemon website. So it says, it is thought that Mega Evolution removes the internal limiter that contains the electric energy stored within its body, allowing it to unleash powerful attacks that can take down multiple nearby opponents at once. So it's kind of like Hooper. It's an unbound form of Zeraora. It's being described as a Mega, which begs the question of like, if this same thing or same sort of thing happens to Hooper, where it's like an unlimited version of it, why is Unbound Hooper not Mega Hooper? Will this DLC redefine Hooper as, or sorry, Unbound Hooper as Mega Hooper? Potentially. Design-wise, it kind of looks like a Metroid or Power Rangers character. It goes much more blue, and the blue is to represent the kind of unbound, plasmatic, higher strength electricity almost, which is an interesting way to go. I think it looks pretty cool. It still keeps its kind of like slender, agile physique. And one thing I found interesting when having a look at the research on this was, where has Zeraora appeared previously? Because Zeraora shares the same fate as plenty of other mythical Pokemon, right? It was in the Pokedex, but there was no real game mission or real game universe media or storylines about Zeraora. Same with Diancie. Even in ZA, Diancie doesn't get a whole lot of kind of like expansion upon its lore. Hooper, Volcanion's another one that's going to be raging at the fact that it's not getting a Mega or any attention yet when it is actually a Kalos Pokemon. Zeraora is technically an Alolan Pokemon, so interesting. The other thing is that Zeraora literally begins with Z and ends with A, which is potentially relevant. Why that feels relevant is this. Centro Leaks reports that Mega Zeraora will be the final Rogue Mega Pokemon boss battle in the Mega Dimension. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it's the final boss, because as we know, like Ange Floette, whatever you want to call it, it wasn't a Mega Pokemon, or it was like a bit of a different category, right? It wasn't the typical rogue battles that you've done throughout the story. It's like a more in Lumio City, multifaceted, multi-layered boss battle against a kind of a Pokemon, but also like a tower. You're basically fighting the Eiffel Tower. My point being, this could be the final Rogue Mega, in the sense of the traditional Rogue Megas where you get transported to that circular kind of arena and you fight the Starmie or the Dragonite or the Tyranitar or whatever, like you do in the story. That doesn't necessarily mean that after that you won't have to fight Unbound Hooper in a different setting potentially. So that remains to be seen. But it's interesting that this will be like a late DLC Pokemon, it seems. Now, when we look at Zeraora, in terms of like where it's appeared since Gen 7 throughout the Pokemon universe. It was in the Power of Us. This is major appearances, and it was in the Power of Us movie, which was like the 21st Pokemon movie, it says here. And its role was that it was once hunted down by Pokemon hunters and developed hostility towards all humans following a fire that ravaged Fula City 50 years ago. Now, the movie plots don't tend to be exact replicas of how that Pokemon then appears in the games, in the main series games, but it does give us some clues, right? We see that with Hooper. We've covered lots of Hooper stuff about the parallels between its kind of in-game appearance and how it appears to be functioning in the DLC, and the Unbound Clash of Ages, I think it was, Hooper, where it unleashes all the legendary Pokemon. So this could give us an insight into why why Zeraora is here. So that's kind of everything about Zeraora, and we were really not given any details about how Zeraora is integrated into the city, or into the story, sorry, and that feels very intentional. I don't know how to describe it, but it just feels very intentional. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Again, we've got some people highlighting that it makes sense because its name is Zeraora, literally Z to A. That kind of poses more questions than it answers, in my opinion, but very interesting. A lot of people comparing it to Mega Luxray as well. And yeah, this is the problem for me, is like casually drops a Mega Mythical through a trailer. Like, you want even Diancie's plot, or Diancie's mission in ZA, I was a little bit disappointed with because it didn't go into much detail. It was just like, hey, go meet Emma, go find Diancie, and there's a little bit of backstory when you do that mission, but there's not a whole lot about Diancie specifically. You kind of have to fill in the gaps yourself. I hope that it's not the same for Zeraora, because these Pokemon are clearly designed with something in mind, some sort of backstory, and like they're kind of designed as a plot device in some sense, but we want to see that being used. We want to see it properly integrated into a cool story. So I hope that is the case for Zeraora. And so based on what we've seen so far, this kind of begs the question, what is this DLC going to be like, and how much content is there going to be in it compared to previous DLCs? Sword and Shield obviously had the Crown Tundra and the Isle of Armor. Isle of Armor came first out of those two, but still it had two separate, like two-part stories that were quite substantial with quite big maps. The issue this time, and we're going to pull up the trailer from last week, or it might have been 2 weeks ago now, of like the kind of teaser, the overall teaser for the Mega Dimension. We'll let this play in the background, but you see this monochrome Lumio City, so it's the same map but kind of repurposed and implied to be this other dimension that's kind of like a mirror world of Lumiose, which I can't help but think that's extremely lazy development. It's just the same map, copy and pasted, and then with like a monochrome filter, like a washed out color palette on top of it. Very interested to see how Hooper comes into this story, and Zeraora, like we discussed, but in terms of like development, this is just very minimal compared to I forgot to mention Scarlet and Violet's DLC, where you literally go to Kitakami, a whole region where the map is pretty big. There's not a lot to do in Kitakami. It's very wild and traditionally like almost like old school Japan. There's like a market, there's a festival, there's some little places to discover, but it's mostly like a wild region, right? And then you've got the biome, right? The dome, in which the second part of the Scarlet and Violet DLC takes place, where it's this more artificial, constructed environment off of the coast of Unova, it would seem. It's definitely part of Unova, but it's in game development terms, it's just a sort of dome. It's just an area. It's a contained little sandbox, and it seems like, again, for ZA, they've really not pushed the boat out when it comes to the location of this DLC, and I think that is one area where it could be really frustrating, considering this is the same approximate price of both of those two DLCs, for Sword and Shield and for Scarlet and Violet, where we had rather a lot of content. Now, what we do have in this is obviously a new plot with Hooper, but that's neither here nor there. That's obvious. You have to have that if you're going to charge for a DLC. What we do have, though, is the overclocking thing, where you have to kind of explore this place, build these donut things and then overclock your Pokemon to over level 100. You've got the return of Karina, and you've got some new Megas. So it seems like they're relying on these kinds of things more so than actually providing us like a new environment and a new area and substantial story. Obviously, this whole thing is amplified by the fact that there's still no voice acting in Pokemon, so it's going to be a lot of the same that we saw in the game, reading text boxes. It just doesn't seem that there's really anywhere new to discover in terms of exploring the world, and it's going to be very gameplay focused. So for me, if it really is just Hyperspace Lumiose, these kind of like pockets of Lumiose City that are monochrome, that are meant to be this alternate dimension, if that is really the only environment that we get to go to in this DLC experience, I think a lot of people are going to be thinking, you know what, I'm going to wait and see if this is worth the purchase, because $24.99, that's the price in the UK in Great British Pounds. It's probably $30 or so in the US dollar, but it's a lot of money for what is obviously a significantly less of a new environment, right? It's just the copy and pasted map of where we played the main game. But the new Megas will be an appeal. The overclocking to over level 100 will be an appeal. That will be the selling point, it would seem. And the story, I guess, of Hooper and finishing some of the stories that were kind of teased in the main game, the main plot, that will be an appeal as well. Is it worth $25 or $30, £25? I'm not sure. So far, based on what we've seen, I'm not sure. Let me know your thoughts down below. I think we need to have a wider discussion, and I'm going to do a video actually where we talk about game key cards, the budgets which came out in the Terra leak as well, which are very revealing and an important talking point. What I want to mention just at the end of this video is there was a leaked kind of note in the Terra leak that Pokemon didn't feel that the budget that they spent on the DLC of Scarlet and Violet, I don't think it was, I think it was just Scarlet and Violet, was not worth essentially the revenue, the profit that they made off of those extra sales. And it seemed like it was going to be more of a budget cut in the future with DLCs going forwards. So if this really doesn't take us to any new locations, if this really is just kind of like, yeah, a reverse mirror dimension of Lumiose City, then that makes sense in terms of the plans that we saw in that Terra leak, whereby they just want to cut budget. So I think that's an anti-consumer resolution to come to, right? And let's see if it affects the sales. I'm excited for it and I will play it, but I am looking at it like, are you really not taking us anywhere new? Are you really just revealing these mythicals and megas and the overclocking, and that's kind of the selling point of the whole thing? The story as well, I don't know, I'm a bit skeptical. I'm a little bit skeptical. That said, I will try to enjoy the game and I will give my honest assessment of whether I think it's actually worth it. But we do have to do another video where we talk about these game key cards and this movement to that, Pokopia of course, the budgets that were leaked in the Terra leak, and the general quality of where Pokemon's at the moment. We've spoken about it a lot over the last year or so. They need to be doing more. Is this going to change in Gen 10? I hope so. But we'll talk about that in another video, guys. Let me know your thoughts on Mega Zeraora down below, and of course, whether you overall think this Mega Dimension DLC is going to be worth what they're charging for it. Let me know that in the comments, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Love you, gang.